لكم فيها دفء ومنافع ومنها تأكلون ولكم فيها جمال حين تريحون وحين تسرحون وتحمل أثقالكم إلى بلد لم تكونوا بالغيه إلا بشق الأنفس إن ربكم لرؤوف رحيم والخيل والبغال والحمير لتركبوها وزينة ويخلق ما لا تعلمون وعلى الله قصد السبيل ومنها جائر ولو شاء لهداكم أجمعين والذي أنزل من السماء ماء لكم منه شراب ومنه شجر فيه تسيمون ينبت لكم به الزرع والزيتون والنخيل والأعناب ومن كل الثمرات إن في ذلك لآية لقوم يتفكرون وسخر لكم الليل والنهار والشمس والقمر والنجوم مسخرات بأمره إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يعقلون وما ذرأ لكم في الأرض مختلفا ألوانه إن في ذلك لآية لقوم يذكرون وهو الذي سخر البحر لتأكلوا منه لحما طريا وتستخرجوا منه حلية تلبسونها وترى الفلك مواخر فيه ولتبتغوا من فضله ولعلكم تشكرون وأنهارا وسبلا لعلكم تهتدون وعلامات وبالنجم هم يهتدون أفمن يخلق كمن لا يخلق أفلا تذكرون وإن تعدوا نعمة الله لا تحصوها إن الله لغفور رحيم والله يعلم ما تسرون وما تعلنون صدق الله العلي العظيم صل على محمد.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Faisal. One more loud salawat for him, please. At this time, I'd like to request Brother Mehdi for recitation of poetry with the loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. How many crescents of Muharram will we grieve? The star of a tragedy you wouldn't believe. All tragedies are easy to endure, save the tragedy of the household, the pure. All alone for aid, Hussein will call. On deaf ears the message will fall. They did all they could but finish the deed. But shimmer in pure evil would lead. On the Prophet's body hooves will trample. Through the burning tents, the horses will scramble. Women and children captured in chains, dragged away from the lands filled with blood stains. On Ashura, a day the tyrants of Umayyah would cheer, the image of family they would smear. They thought they were relieved of Hussein, nay, the start of their everlasting pain. Lovers for centuries continue to mourn. New mourners every day will be born. One day, God's sacrifice will be avenged with the awaited Savior. 313 pledged. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
Jazakallah, Brother Mehdi. One more loud salawat for him. At this time, I'd like to request Brother Salman for recitation of poetry with the loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. مٹی کو بھی شفا کا وسیلہ بنا دیا، مٹی کو بھی شفا کا وسیلہ بنا دیا، سرور نے کربلا کو مسیحا بنا دیا، مٹی کو بھی شفا کا وسیلہ بنا دیا، سرتا قدم کچھ ایسے سنوارا حسین نے، سرتا قدم کچھ ایسے سنوارا حسین نے، اکبر کو مصطفیٰ کا سراپا بنا دیا، اکبر کو مصطفیٰ کا سراپا بنا دیا، سرور نے کربلا کو مسیحا بنا دیا، مٹی کو بھی شفا کا وسیلہ بنا دیا، عباس نے ہنر سے تدبر سے صبر سے، عباس حسن ہنر سے، تدبر سے، صبر سے، دریا کو پیاس، پیاس کو دریا بنا دیا، دریا کو پیاس، پیاس کو دریا بنا دیا، سرور نے کربلا کو مسیحا بنا دیا، مٹی کو بھی شفا کا وسیلہ بنا دیا، شاہد ہمیں خدا نے عزائے حسین میں، شاہد ہمیں خدا نے عزائے حسین میں، انسانیت کی آنکھ کا تارا بنا دیا، انسانیت کی آنکھ کا تارا بنا دیا، سرور نے کربلا کو مسیحا بنا دیا، مٹی کو بھی شفا کا وسیلہ بنا دیا، آواز بلند صلوات۔
Jazakallah khair, brother Salman. One more loud salawat for him, please. At this time, I'd like to request Brother Zain Hussain for recitation of poetry with the loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
بارے محمد والے محمد صلوات۔ ہائے ہائے علی اکبر، ہائے ہائے علی اکبر، کہتی تھی ماں خوں بھری میت سے لپٹ کر، ہائے ہائے علی اکبر، ہائے ہائے علی اکبر، ارمان تا پہنا وہ کی پوشاک شہانی، افسوس کہ رسائے نہ تجھ کو یہ جوانی، کیسا تھا مقدر، ہائے ہائے علی اکبر، کہتی تھی ماں ہوں بھری میت سے لپٹ کر، ہائے ہائے علی اکبر، 18 برس پال کے پروان چڑھایا، وہ گیسوں والا ہے میرا خون میں نہایا، خرم लिपट कर हाय हाय अली अकबर इतना तो जरा ठहरो तुम्हें दूल्हा बना लूं बस एक झलक शहर की सुगरा को दिखा लूं बेचैन थी खावर हाय हाय अली अकबर कहती थी माँ हूँ भरी मैया से लिपट कर हाय हाय अली अकबर माँ तेरी जुदाई में भला कैसे जिएगी मार जाएगी सुगरा जो खबर तेरी सुनेगी अब क्या करूं दिल पर हाय हाय अली अकबर कहती थी माँ हूँ भरी मैयत से लिपट कर हाय हाय अली अकबर हाय 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 अली अकबर हाय हाय अली अकबर बर मोहम्मद आल मोहम्मद सलवात
Jazakallah khair, Zen. One more loud salawat for him. And one more loud salawat for both of our young reciters. Both did extremely well. And inshallah, may they keep reciting in the future. One more loud salawat, please. Respected Sayyid, scholars, elders, brothers and sisters of faith, assalamu alaikum. Our condolences to the Imam of our time on the holy tragedy of Karbala, and of course the tragedy that fell to the ladies of Al Muhammad on their journey from Karbala to Kufa and Kufa to Sham. Sayyid Suleiman Hasan Ali, Jazakallah khair for accepting our invitation and coming out this weekend. As you can see, when you come out, it is not just the community who comes to listen to you, but scholars from everywhere. I would not be surprised if the Rastani brothers popped out of some corner here tonight as well. We look forward to your lectures as we learn quite a bit from them. And inshallah, we hope to elevate ourselves to them. We hope that you accept our invitations for the future as we are not done learning from you. For the health and for inshallah the return of Sayyid Suleiman, allow salawat please. Before I request the Sayyid to begin, just a few reminders. Each weekend, CFK will have weekend programs and we will be inviting guest speakers each weekend. Inshallah, we are honored to host Sheikh Ahmed Modaresi next weekend. The programs will be on Saturday and Sunday, and they will begin at 7:15 p.m. with the recitation of Holy Quran, followed by speech, matam, Salat al-Maghriban, and Tugo Niyaz. Jazakallah khair to all those who have donated in these days to the City of Knowledge. Alhamdulillah, we are getting closer and closer to our goal that we have set out to raise. Please remember, we don't do any active fundraising in between programs. It is requested to all those who can, please help us reach our goal and donate as much as you can. Sponsorship slots are available online and updated every day at cfkdfw.org. A reminder for our mothers that we do have a dedicated mother's room for young children for their ease and to minimize disturbances in the main hall during the program. A general reminder, as always, event details are posted on our webpage and our WhatsApp group. On our website, you can sign up for our newsletter, find the QR code to join our WhatsApp groups, and donate and sponsor in these holy nights. For opportunities to help behind the scenes, or if you have any questions, please speak to myself or any of the volunteers. Before I ask the Sayyid to begin his speech, I would like to request that we recite a Surah Fatiha for the marhumeen of tonight's program sponsors. Let us also include all of our own marhumeen and mominat as well. At this time, I'd like to request Sayyid to ascend the member for his speech for tonight and ask the brothers and sisters please to move as close to the member as possible with allow salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Surah Al-Fatiha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين المبعوث رحمة للعالمين شفيع المذنبين وحبيب قلوب الصادقين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد فقد قال الله عز وجل في القرآن المجيد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين لا شريك له وبذلك أمرت وأنا أول المسلمين صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Respected ulama, dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Just with regard to the introduction, I can assure you that the respected scholars, they come to benefit me and all of us present and not to be benefited by the few things that I have learned that I try to repeat more for a reminder to myself and maybe of benefit to all of us, inshallah. Yesterday we mentioned that one of our struggles in life is to lead a God-centered life in our goals, in what we say and what we plan and what we do and think. We want the focus of our life to be Allah and not our own whim or desire, our habit or our inclination. And that is difficult in all times and all places, regardless of historical era or culture or environment or circumstance, because every human being has temptation and every human being has certain challenges and tests in life. But it is particularly difficult in our time when the nature of our society idealizes worshiping and serving the self. That individualism and that materialism is so insidious that sometimes it makes it difficult for us even to realize what is the nature of a God-centered life. And so it's not that we have a clear picture of what that God-centered life is in our mind, and we have clear role models and examples of that are present in our society, and then our challenge is simply to live up to that ideal. In all times and places, this struggle exists. You can be in the time of one of the prophets of Allah. You can be in the time and in the city of one of the ma'soom imams. Or you can be in a place where there are many ulama, there are many pious believers, and so you have role models. From the prophet and the ma'soom and the imam, all the way down to awliya, ulama, atqiya, pious people. And now your struggle is to be able to learn from them, benefit from them, and live your life according to their principles. That struggle is universal. But we have an additional struggle, which is that sometimes those role models are not visible to us. Our society creates a certain celebrity and gives prominence to people who have other accomplishments. So we know people who are influential in the economy, in sports, in entertainment, in political and other affairs. But those people who are very pious, those people who have served Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with dedication for their lives, they are not always as prominent, as visible within our community. This is a change that I've noticed even in my own lifetime. And don't look at the white hairs, I'm not that old, but I'm speaking in the space of maybe 20 or 30 years. That when I was younger, if you were to ask many members, at least committed members of the Muslim community or the Shi'i Muslim community, to speak about the nature of our school of thought, then one of the first things that would come to their mind was to describe the lives and the teachings of the greatest ulama and scholars that we have, as a way to understand the teachings, the values, and the worldview of Islam and of the Prophet and the Imams alayhimus salatu wassalam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. In other words, we had a culture that the life of a marji' al-taqlid or a faqih, or even the life of somebody who has devoted himself or herself to the service and the teaching and the benefit of the community, that's not their personal decision. That's not on equal footing with somebody who devotes themselves to building a business empire or to pleasure. We don't say, well, that's what they wanted to do with their life, more power to them. And that's what they wanted to do with their life, more power to them. But rather, the entire community felt not just a debt to those people who had served the community, but they felt that if I speak of my ulama, if I speak of my shuhada, if I speak of those people who devoted themselves to the community, then I'm not telling the story of their life, but rather I am telling the story of my entire community and my religion. That is one perspective that was not uncommon at one time. But just those of you who are old enough, think of how much it has changed. That now, if somebody decides to devote themselves to the community, people might praise it, but in the end they say, well, that's your choice, that's your decision, that is up to you. And in many ways, that doesn't define anything more than a calling that a particular person feels, because we have, without maybe realizing it, internalized the idea that everyone's goals, Everyone's priorities are different. And everyone has a right to choose. And everyone's choice is equally valid. That is a very big change that has taken place within a generation. And it is a very big loss. So it's very interesting in these verses of Surah Al-An'am, when our Prophet has a motto that describes a God-centered life. قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. My prayer and my ritual or my worship, my life and my death are for God. Yesterday I mentioned that even our prayer, we have to dedicate it towards God. It's not obvious that, well, who else are you going to pray to? Of course you're praying to God. Like me, if half of your prayers are distracted, if half of your prayers are, oh my God, how much time is left? Quick. Which way is the Qibla? Or even the prayer that you do on time is, I have a busy day, let me get the prayer out of the way so I don't have to worry about it, and then I can focus on what I need to get done. Whether the prayer is late or the prayer is early, many of us, that prayer is not really for God, but it is kind of a little obligation. We have to get it out of the way so we can get on with what truly is important to us or what keeps us busy in our life. So even our prayer and our worship, we need to reconsider it and examine whether it is for God or not. But then broader than that, وَحَيَاتِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي, our life and our death. And this is a reminder that in the Islamic conception, our ideals are around our prayer. One of the ways that we can give value to our prayer is not to schedule our prayer around other things, but to schedule other things around our prayer. This is a mental note. Don't say that I pray during my lunch break. Say that I have lunch during my prayer time. It's an anchor. You don't pray as a footnote to something else in your life, but that other thing in your life, even if that's officially what you have off at work or at school or in your life, that is anchored to your prayer. I exercise after I have finished Fajr, or whatever other time it may be. But what you do, anchor it mentally around prayer. Your best clothing, your best personal grooming is for your salat. That is when you practice your best character and your best behavior. So, in a sense, salati wa nusuki comes before mahyaya wa mamati, and that is a reminder for us that our life and our death are anchored and given depth through our prayer, so that the prayer is not a footnote. But then, very interestingly, that motto continues. La sharika lah, there is no partner for God. My prayer is not for God and also for other things, only for God. My life and my death are not for God and then also for other reasons, only for God. وَبِذَلِكَ أُمِرْتَ. For the Prophet, it is no condescension, it is no insult, it is nothing that takes away from his mission to say that it is not that I chose it, but that this is God's command. And I want to just pause here for a moment, because sometimes people assume that parents, culture, society, Islamic law impose things on Muslims. And many Muslims, especially in this society, as a defense mechanism, we say that, no, nobody forces me to wear hijab. It is my own choice. Nobody forces me to pray. It is my own choice. Nobody forces me to fast or to eat halal. It is my own choice. And that's true. It is your own choice. Nobody does, and nobody can force you to practice Islam. In fact, Mufassirin have mentioned that one of the meanings of the Quranic principle, La ikraha fid din, is not to say that there shouldn't be compulsion in religion as a normative statement, that nobody should force you to practice. But rather, it is an existential reality that deen is something that only can exist if you choose it. And it's not that nobody should force it, but rather nobody can force it. Because if it is forced, then it is not deen. It is not worship. It is not obedience. It is not an orientation towards Allah that is a statement of your principles. Rather, it is something that you were pressured or you were compelled into. So, la ikraha fid din, yes, nobody should compel it, but even more so, nobody can compel it. It's just not possible. Because if it is compelled, then it's not deen. So it is a choice. If you pray, it is a choice. If you fast, it is a choice. If you eat halal, it is a choice. If you wear hijab, it is a choice. But when sometimes society tells us that it is not a choice and it is compelled by our guardians or our elders or our society, sometimes we overemphasize the fact that it is a choice. And that is not healthy. Because in the end, you don't wear hijab, and I'm looking towards the men, because you have iffah and modesty as well. And in many cases in our Muslim communities, the women have better hijab than our men. This is just something that we can experience. You pray or you live an active life and you find that the clothing that the men wear is not in accordance with the Islamic guidance of modesty. It applies equally to men and women, of course, in principle, even if the legal requirements may be different. In the end, the reason why you wear hijab or you conform to the Islamic requirements and recommendations of apparel or of worship or of diet is not because it is a choice. You do it because it is the commandment and it is the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that simple shift in focus makes an entire difference in the reality of that action. Let me give an example. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. A gift is really only a gift if you give it of your free will. Now, there are probably some wives who are going to say that, well, my husband is not able to give a good gift, and so I have to tell him what I want, and then I have to basically go online and order it myself and give myself the gift. Unfortunately, that might be the case. I'm going to plead the fifth on that myself. But a gift is only truly a gift and valuable if you choose it. Even if your significant other or your loved one kind of hints that, this is what I want. But then when you decide to give it, when you take the hint and you make the effort to buy it, to create it, whatever it might be, that is what makes it a gift. Now imagine that I give you a gift and then I focus on the fact that it was my choice. That's not really the point of the gift. It is what makes it a gift, that you chose it, right? If you have to take the money from my wallet and go buy it for yourself without me knowing it and maybe without me really being happy about it, then it's not a gift from me. It's a gift from you to yourself. So it is that I have to give it. But then when I give it, if I say this was my choice, then in a sense I've made it about myself. And it's still a gift, but it's not as valuable a gift. Because the whole point of that gift is that this is what I think you want. This is what I think will bring you happiness. And the goal and the focus is on you, not on me. Keep the microphone for now. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So it's a problem then for me to say that no, my hijab is my choice. It is your choice. It must be your choice, but that's not the point. My prayer is my choice. I choose to do it. It is your choice. It must be, but that's not the point. And when you make it your choice, then you are making it about yourself. When any ibadah is meant to be your choice because God honored you, but it is about God, not about yourself. And when you focus on the fact that it is your choice, and many Muslims, they do that as a response to prejudice and ignorance. But there is no shame in saying, وَبِذَلِكَ أُمِرْتُ. I was commanded to do this. This is not about me for me to tell you that I chose to do it. My life is about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And my life is a life of submission. In fact, I'm not even concerned about my Muslim identity because my identity is an affiliation and an orientation towards God. And therefore, when I have a choice, I say that my choice is to look and see what it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. Sometimes if I say that my parents told me to do this, then I feel embarrassed in front of my friends. And sometimes, even if we are told to do something, we want to kind of hide the fact that somebody asked us or that an elder has requested it or that I'm doing this out of a sense of obligation or deference. And even with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we want to kind of assert our will and our independence. But there is no greater honor than to be an abd, to be a servant, to be somebody who acts, says, and does what is the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what's the harm between me saying that my prayer is my choice versus me saying my prayer is my obedience to my Creator through my free will, but not about the choice that I made, and rather about the command that I am following. When I emphasize that it is my choice, then subconsciously I am setting up the option for me to choose differently in the future. And so there might not be a stability and a rootedness in my worship because I am constantly drawing attention to my own self and my own volition. And so every day then I have to choose anew. What is it that I want to do? But when I emphasize the fact that this is an obligation, then I am making it easier and easier for me to make that right choice with every passing day, because the attention is going towards Allah. These are subtle things, but they make a big difference in our ability to continue practicing and to improve our practice through our lives. An example of that is the word haqq. In Arabic and in other Islamic languages, haqq means truth and it means a right. So when you have rights, those are your huquq. But the way that we use the word in English is different from how it is used within our Islamic usage, in any Islamic language. When I say Islamic language, what I mean is a language that has been informed by the practice and the usage of Muslims. When I say rights, then normally in English, what comes to your mind? What you are owed. But when I say huquq in our Islamic usage, whether I use it in English, or I use it in Arabic, or in Urdu, or in any other language, in Farsi, when I say huquq, then what comes to your mind? Not just what you are owed, but also what you owe to others. And so we say huququllah. We say huququn nas or huququl ibad. The rights, the obligations that belong to Allah. The rights, the obligations that belong to other people. This is a right. And everything that you are owed, the flip side of it is what you owe. Because if I have a right, then you owe it to me. And if you have a right, then I owe it to you. But the focus in our Islamic usage is balanced. It is focused on the fact that it is truth and that there are two sides. And the more important side is what obligation I have. Because you are only going to have your rights if I am going to honor them. So as an individual, more than demanding what I am owed by others, it is important for me to focus on what I owe to others. Because I don't control your giving me my rights as much as I control my giving God and others what I owe to them. So that subtle shift in focus, it gives us a more complete and a more healthy approach to our life and towards our decisions in life about what we need to do and how we need to do it. So, وَبِذَلِكَ أُمِرْتُ وَأَنَا أَوَّلُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. God has commanded me, and I am the first of those who submit. Don't focus on the fact that you choose to do what is right. Focus on what is right, and if you find it is difficult to choose to do it, then pressure yourself and change your mentality or change your environment or whatever factors are making it difficult, so that not only will you have the choice, but that you will exercise it properly. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I want to give a few more examples of how it is difficult in this society for us even to conceive of a God-centered life. Not just to do it and to practice it, but even to conceive of it. Another change that I've noticed, just in my few decades of experience living in the Muslim community. When you hear a really good talk or lecture, live or perhaps recorded online, I've noticed that people will introduce maybe an article or a lecture or a clip to somebody and say, you know what, you should listen to this, it's really interesting. Or I'm a boring speaker, but I've heard people come to interesting speakers and say that, you know, that was a really interesting talk. Historically, in our Islamic culture and society, to come to a scholar or to come to something that is important and say that it is interesting was a little bit of an insult. But the people who say that, they don't intend to insult the speaker by saying that it was interesting. They intend to praise. But interest is about what my soul finds engaging. Who's to say what I find interesting is what is important to me? A lot of the foods that are very important for my health are not as interesting as the junk food that gives me a false sense of being full. When you come to an Islamic scholar or an Islamic topic and you are looking for what to listen to or what to read or what to engage with, and the first thing that comes to your mind in order to describe it is, listen to this, it's interesting. It's kind of like that approach to food where you only look at what smells good or what tastes good. Yes, good food should taste good. But more importantly, it should be wholesome, it should be healthy, it should be tayyib, and it should be halal. And if it has those attributes, even if it's not as tasty as the junk food that you can get from somewhere else, then it will sustain you. And if you eat it, eventually you will develop a taste for it. So when you first switch from eating junk food to eating healthy, you might crave that junk food. But as your body acclimates to what is actually good for you, then gradually you may even find that you have a revulsion to those foods that you found really tasty before. Either because intellectually you know how bad they are for you, they might still be tempting, but because you know how they are processed, or what's in them, or what damage they do to your physical body long term, you might feel repulsed at the thought of eating them. Yet when it comes to our religious teachings, many of us, we still have that same approach. It's interesting. So what in Islamic culture was our model? Benefit. To learn. To come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those things that bring us closer to God. That is what we value. And the language that we historically had is about istifada. About nafa. فَذَكِّرْ إِن نَفَعَتِ الذِّكْرَ. The Prophet is told, remind people. And when people are reminded, then today, the natural response of every child to their parent, every Sunday school student to their teacher, every young person to their elders, and even sometimes those of us who are middle-aged and we have the blessing of our parents still being alive, sometimes even I know. We know. But if that elder or if that parent or if that teacher is telling me something, then presumably there is still some distance between what I know and what I am practicing. Otherwise, my mother wouldn't need to tell me, son, slow down when you're driving. Yeah, I know the speed limit. And maybe I think I'm a wonderful driver. But when that person reminds me, then maybe there is a gap between what I know and what I am doing. And the proper Islamic framework is for us not to be so concerned with what is interesting. In fact, this is something that in the Hawza in Qum, when I went, I heard from one of the teachers. He said, what's wrong with you Western students? You come and you say that, you know what, I'm not really interested in fiqh. I want to study irfan. Or I'm not really interested in this subject, I want to study history. Are you coming here to a cafeteria? Or are you coming here to a source that has Islamic knowledge and you want to find out from them what you need to study and what you need to learn? Yeah, you bring your experience. You bring your own thinking and you are never to turn that off. But in the end, you are not coming to a self-serve buffet where you choose whatever food you are in the mood of. You also want to learn from those who have preserved that heritage and have devoted an entire life. And in fact, their scholarship is not the product of 70 years of study, but it is the heritage of generations and centuries of scholarship and study and pious practice. You want to learn from them. What should you find interesting? And what should you study? Not that you turn off your own mind, but that you put it in its proper place. And so your interest is there for you, but it isn't the first and the only thing that you think of. Now, many of us, we might find that we gravitate towards those things that are engaging. We share them, we think about them, we read them, and, we can scroll one clip after another. And if something is boring, then even if it's like a 5-minute clip, we listen to 20 seconds, and then we swipe past it. That shows that maybe we think we're learning about religion. But if my approach to religion is based on my own interests, then where am I going to discipline my interests to bring them in line with where they should be? Where am I going to learn what food is healthy and wholesome for me, rather than just consuming whatever seems to be the most engaging or the most tasty. That's an example of even where our religious practice can often be self-serving rather than God-serving. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The second example I'm going to have to give a little bit more briefly, but it is perhaps even more important. And that is fun. Now, how important is fun? If you look at our contemporary language, then sometimes we speak about it as if it is the most important thing in life. You say goodbye to somebody, I hope you have fun. They come back from school, a field trip, or wherever they may have been. Did you have fun? Are you having fun? It's almost as if, historically as Muslims, what did we used to do? When we would meet somebody, when we would bid farewell to somebody, when we would ask about somebody, normally our greetings, our words of parting, and our phrases were prayers. May God protect you. May God keep you safe. May God give you benefit. So there were always du'as that were kind of the way that we greeted, the way that we parted, the way that we interacted with each other. Those of you who may be familiar with non-Muslims who lived in close company of Muslims, even many of them would learn words like insha'Allah, masha'Allah, and some of these natural expressions because the Muslims used them so much that they just became a part of popular culture. And now, when we speak, almost we have taken that desire to have fun and made it the center, not of our lives, but certainly of our subconscious and our discourse. Have fun. Talk to people when they want to get married. What are you looking for in a spouse? I want somebody who makes me laugh. Talk to somebody who's been married for 20 years. You have issues that you deal with in life. Ups and downs. Sickness and health. Struggles, times of happiness. Having a sense of humor is very important. And in fact, one of the distinguishing features of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Ahlul Bayt is that they had a sense of humor. In fact, one of the reasons why the second caliph said that Imam Ali is not the best person for the caliphate is that وَرَجُلٌ فِيهِ دُعَابَةٌ, he has a sense of humor. How are you going to strike fear in the hearts of the Romans and the Persians and be a good military dictator, which was their model of government, if you're always smiling at people and being lighthearted? So that's important. But is that the most important thing in a marriage that brings it success? You can help a person find humor if they have their values and their priorities right. But you can find a lot of people who will make you laugh, and then they will make you cry. And the laughter may be for a few minutes, and the tears will be for a lifetime. That's not that high a priority, and it's certainly not the only priority. But because we think that that is so important, we make it to be almost the first thing and the last thing that we say. We don't realize that this is contrary to a God-centered life. The Quran says in the words of the people of Qarun, one of the contemporaries of Prophet Musa alayhi salam and Fir'aun, and a disbeliever in the message of God. إِذْ قَالَ لَهُ قَوْمُهُ لَا تَفْرَحْ. Don't be happy in that sense of seeking pleasure. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْفَرِحِينَ. Allah doesn't love those who are, and I'm going to translate it as pleasure seeking. Because when you are seeking the next exciting thing, then that means that you are not prioritizing what is the source of true happiness, which is a meaningful and a purposeful life. And not just a subjective purpose, because your purpose in life might be to explore as many new places as you can, to try as many new foods as you can. Not just a subjective purpose or a meaning, but rather a purpose and a meaning that is worthy of your human soul, which is in line with your potential as a human being and in line with what God created you for. And that is to worship and to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you have that purpose, then you will have itmi'nan. Then you will have tranquility and serenity. And that is a pleasure which is far above any momentary pleasure or fun that you can seek in this material life. So we can see, even with simple language, when we speak of rights, this is my right. When we speak of interests, but we don't think about how our interests need to be disciplined in line with our priorities and our values and our obligations. When we speak of fun, and we don't realize that fun or enjoyment or satisfaction is the product of a life well lived and not the goal of our life. It's a result. It's an outcome. فَوَقَاهُمُ اللَّهُ شَرَّ ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمِ وَلَقَّاهُمْ نَضْرَةً وَسُرُورًا. Allah will give you the pleasure. Allah will give you not the farah, but the surur. That lasting and stable tranquility and happiness and satisfaction, that is the outcome, but not the goal, not the focus. When we don't realize these things, then we will never be able to picture, let alone practice, a God-centered life. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And when we have a God-centered life, then we will be able to do many things that we didn't think possible. So far, we've only spoken about the framing, about changing how we think of our goals in life, how we think about our role and our obligations. We cannot say that our family or our relatives or the circumstances that God has created us with are an obstacle in our spirituality. Because Allah does not place obstacles in our way, He places opportunities in our path. That is why, according to the ahadith of Ahlul Bayt, هُوَ أَوْلَى بِحَسَنَاتِكُم مِّنكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ أَوْلَى بِسَيِّئَاتِكُم مِّنْهُ. Allah is more worthy of the praise for the good that you do than you are. And you are more worthy of the evil that you do than He is. He gave you free will. And if you use that free will to sin, then you wouldn't be able to do it unless God continued to give you that power. But that worthiness of punishment belongs to you, not God, even though He gave you the power to commit the sin. And if you do good, it was your choice to do good. He never forced your hand. But Allah is more worthy of the praise. Why the double standard? If He is more worthy of my good deeds, then why doesn't He take the blame for my bad deeds as well? And if He is not going to take the blame for my bad deeds, then why does He take the credit for my good deeds? Is that a double standard? Well, if I think that Allah places obstacles in my life, then maybe I will be confused. But when I realize that whatever God gives me is an opportunity, not an obstacle, even if I'm frustrated sometimes at how my parents are, or how my children are, or how my other relatives act, if I don't think of them as an obstacle, I think of them as a test and an opportunity given to me by Allah, then I will appreciate that there is a wisdom in all of those circumstances that God has created. Let me just give you an example. If I say that I want to bake a cake, but I have no idea about how to cook. And so somebody comes to me, they buy the ingredients, they lay them out, they even measure them for me, they preheat the oven, they give me the proper utensils, the pot that I need to use, and they give me detailed instructions. So all of the ingredients, all of the proportions, all of the utensils, everything is set out and spelled out. And then they say, all right, I'm going to go take care of some stuff. You take it from here. Now, if I bake a perfect cake, do I deserve some credit? Yes. Do I deserve the majority of the credit? No, because I could not recreate that. I don't know whether it was wheat or barley. I just took whatever they gave and they said, put this, mix it with that, and then do this. So I deserve some credit because I did the pouring and I did the mixing, but who deserves the majority of the credit? The one who facilitated. Now what if I take those same ingredients and I say, all right, we can throw away these instructions, I don't need them. Throw it all together, add a little bit of salt, add a little bit of vinegar, put it in the microwave, blast it for 5 minutes, it comes out not quite as intended. Now, should I say that, well, you deserve the blame. You gave me these ingredients. Who deserves the majority of the blame? هُوَ أَوْلَى بِحَسَنَاتِكُم مِّنكُم. Because he facilitated, he laid out the ingredients to a good life. He gave you a conscience, he gave you a fitrah, he gave you reminders, he gave you so many opportunities. If I squander them, then that's more my fault. And if I use them well, then that is more a statement of what he gave me than it is a statement of my own greatness. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And that, in summary, is what we mean when we say that we need to live a God-centered life. Recognize those opportunities. And then the challenges that we have in life, model how to deal with them in a way that honors Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Have pious role models. Look at the stories and the examples of the ma'asumeen and model our own behavior on them. Because we are out of time, I just want to point to a letter of Imam Ali alayhi salam in Nahjul Balagha, letter number 45. Sometimes depending on what translation or what source you're using, you might have to go a little bit before or a little bit after, but letter number 45 to Uthman ibn Hunayf. A letter of Imam Ali to his governor in Basra by the name of Uthman ibn Hunayf. He was a member of the Ansar, I believe from the Aus tribe of the Ansar, a very dedicated companion of Prophet Muhammad first and then of Imam Ali alayhi salam, and he died soon after the time of Imam Ali. He was invited to a gathering where there were wealthy people invited. And Imam Ali writes him a letter, مَا ظَنَنْتُ أَنَّكَ تُجِيبُ إِلَى طَعَامِ قَوْمٍ عَائِلُهُمْ مَجْفُوء وَغَنِيُّهُمْ مَدْعُوء. I didn't think that you would accept the invitation of a people where those people who are needy are ignored and those people who are wealthy are welcomed. Nothing wrong with having good food, with having a sumptuous meal and inviting your friends, but don't invite just the influential and the powerful. The problem with this invitation is not the sumptuous food. The problem is that it discriminated, that if you have wealthy friends or wealthy relatives, then they are worth something because they're going to come in handy to you sometime. And those who are not so materially wealthy, then you kind of treat them as if they are not as important. ما ظننت أنك تجيب إلى دعوة قوم عائلهم fu وغنيهم مدعو. That you shouldn't discriminate on the basis of people's material circumstances. And then the Imam continues and he gives advice. He says that your Imam lives the simplest life. 2 loaves of bread for food, 2 articles of clothing for dress. And the Imam says, وَإِنَّكُمْ لَا تَقْدِرُونَ عَلَى ذَلك. You're not going to be able to do that. وَلَكِنْ أَعِينُونِي بِوَرَعٍ وَاجْتِهَادٍ وَعِفَّةٍ وَسَدَادٍ. You're not going to be able to do what Imam Ali does. And you are not intended to. But assist Imam Ali with wara'in wajtihad. Be conscious of sin and work hard to do the best that you can do. Wa'iffatin wa sadad. Be chaste and be righteous. That is what Imam Ali alayhi salam expects from us. And then he says that we had in our hand fadak. كانت بأيدينا فدك من كل ما أظلت السماء. فشحت عليها نفوس قوم وسخت عنها نفوس قوم آخرين. There were some people who were stingy and they wanted to take fadak from us. It's all we had. من كل ما أظلت السماء. We didn't have any other property. Some people were stingy. They wanted to grab it from us. وسخت عنها نفوس قوم آخرين. And then we said that, well, it's not worth fighting over it. It's not worth causing a fitna in the Muslim community for the sake of property, although it was the right of Ahlul Bayt. وَنِعْمَ الْحَكَمُ اللَّهِ. Allah is the best judge. And what does Imam Ali say after that? وَمَا أَصْنَعُ بِفَدَكْ وَغَيْرِ فَدَكْ. What will I do with fadak? Or with other property other than fadak? And then after Imam Ali describes the imminence of death, he says this sentence, which is perhaps the key to this sermon. إِنَّمَا هِيَ نَفْسِي أَرُوبُهَا بِالتَّقْوَى لِتَأْتِيَ آمِنَةً يَوْمَ الْخَوْفِ الْأَكْبَرِ. It is only my own soul that I am training with piety so that it will come tranquil and safe on the day of the greatest fear. How many of our own families have been broken apart because of a fight over inheritance? In many cases, where both brothers or both brother and sister have their own livelihood. Neither one is homeless, neither one is starving. But just because we want to have more, we're willing to destroy a relationship. So Imam Ali alayhi salam, he reminds us that there are higher priorities than what is your right. وَنِعْمَ الْحَكَمُ اللَّهِ. Leave some things for Allah to judge. And think of those priorities. And think of those relationships and how to preserve and how to honor them, even though neither we are perfect nor our relatives or our communities are going to be perfect. No one except for Allah and the Ma'asumeen is going to have perfection, and so we should not expect it of others just as we cannot attain it ourselves. But when we take our eyes off of those material resources and we attend towards taqwa, then we can better judge what are fights worth fighting and what are battles that are worth letting go. What is worth sacrificing and what is not worth sacrificing. And that إِنَّمَا هِيَ نَفْسِي أَرُوضُهَا بِالتَّقْوَى لِتَأْتِيَ آمِنَةً يَوْمَ الْخَوْفِ الْأَكْبَرِ. It is my soul. And so although Imam Ali did not have any other landed property in Hijaz at the time, other than Fadak, he said that there was a greater interest and I will give up that property in the way of Allah. And of course that was the teaching of Ahlul Bayt. It isn't just Fadak, they gave up what is far, far more valuable. And that was their own selves and their own loved ones. Today let us remember one of the personalities most closely associated with Karbala, known as Ummul Masa'ib, Sayyida Zainab bint Ali. She had a special affection for Imam Hussein, such that it is said that Lady Zainab Salamullahi alayha, she would be inseparable from Imam Hussein. until the day of Ashura came. And then Imam Hussein, he said to Lady Zainab that, "Oh my sister, from now on you are going to carry the message of Karbala forward." And if you want to see the devotion of Lady Zainab to her sister, to her brother, and to the mission of her brother, if you want to see the willingness to sacrifice everything in the way of Allah and the way that she would carry on the message of Karbala, then just compare two scenes. Because we are out of time, I will just mention these two scenes that both took place on the day of Ashura. One is when she brought her own sons, Aun and Muhammad, to Imam Hussein. And the Imam says that, "Oh my sister Zainab, I do not wish to send them to battle because they are your sons. They are the apple of your eye. Every mother has a wish to see her children thrive and grow old and have a family of their own. Zainab, I cannot bear to sacrifice them, to see them martyred." And Lady Zainab says to her brother that, "Oh my brother, in our entire life you have never said no to your sister. On this day of Ashura, are you going to say no to me for the first time? Are you going to refuse the sacrifice that I am offering in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? If I had anything more precious than these two children, I would offer them in the defense of Islam." And the Imam could not say no to Zainab. He let Aun and Muhammad go to the battlefield. And when they were martyred, Imam Hussein and Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, they went to the battlefield. They brought back, one of them was holding the body of Aun, the other was holding the body of Muhammad. And maybe as they walked back to the battlefield, Imam Hussein was worried that, will the heart of Lady Zainab be able to bear the body of two young sons martyred so mercilessly by the enemy? But when he came back, he saw that Lady Zainab was not waiting outside, but rather she was in her tent and she was in prostration, thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for accepting her sacrifice. And then another scene on that same day of Ashura, when Imam Hussein said to his son Ali Akbar, "Go and face the enemy," and Ali Akbar went, and Imam Hussein said that, "You have taken my permission, but you have an aunt Zainab who loved you like her own son. Go and take permission." And Lady Zainab said, "Ali Akbar, I cannot bear to see you go, because you are the reminder of my grandfather Rasulullah." When Ali Akbar came to the battlefield, and he gave his life, when he fell in battle and he called out, "Assalamu alayka ya Abatah," Imam Hussein went to the body of Ali Akbar. But according to the narrations of Maqatil, when he reached, he saw that his sister Zainab had preceded him, and she had thrown herself on the body of Ali Akbar, and she was saying that, "Oh my son, what has this enemy done to you, who were the very image of Rasulullah? They destroyed your beauty and they took your life without any mercy." And Imam Hussein took his sister by the hand and said that, "Go back to the tent, for your brother Hussein is still alive." That was the devotion of Lady Zainab to the message of Islam, that when she gave her own sons, she went in prostration to thank Allah. But when she saw that the son of Imam Hussein was sacrificed, then out of her love for her Imam, she mourned as if it were her own child that had been martyred. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Wa sayalamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalabin yanqalibun. O Allah, accept this remembrance on our behalf and forgive us our shortcomings. O Allah, grant us to live our lives according to the values of Ahlul Bayt, so that we have their guidance in our lives and their intercession and their company in the hereafter. Atami Hussein.
Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Ya چادروں کا نام سن کر رو پڑی بنتے علی شام کے دربار میں. چادروں کا نام سن کر رو پڑی بنتے علی شام کے دربار میں. چادروں کا نام سن کر رو پڑی بنتے علی شام کے دربار میں. واہ جابا کہہ رہی تھی سیدہ کی لاڈلی شام کے دربار میں. چادروں نام سن کر رو پڑی کرسیوں پر قاتلان شاہ تھے بیٹھے ہوئے سایہ دیوار میں تھے سب حرم لیکن کھڑے. با وفا کو ڈھونڈتی تھی دختر شیر جری شام کے بازار میں. چادروں کا رو پڑی بنتے علی شام کے بازار میں. چادروں علی شام کے شمر دیکھا تو سکینہ سہم کر رونے لگی. شمر ہو جا دور فیضا چیخ کر کہنے لگی. خوف سے مرجھا رہی ہے باغ عصمت کی کلی شام کے دربار میں. چادروں کا نام سن کر رو پڑی شام کے دربار میں. چادروں کا نام شام کے دربار میں. کون ہے زینب پکارا جس گھڑی فرعون شام ہائے غربت کہہ کے اٹھا تھا میرا قیدی امام. اشک خون کے رو رہا تھا شاہ کا بیٹا علی شام کے دربار میں. چادروں شام کے دربار میں. چادروں کا نام سن کر شام کے دربار میں. چادروں کا تے علی شام کے دربار میں. تشت میں بابا کے سر پر جب پڑی اس کی نظر اپنے زخموں کی رہی نہ پھر سکینہ کو خبر. روتے بابا کی یہ جانب لاڈلی بیٹی چلی شام کے دربار میں. چادروں کا نام سن کر رو پڑی بنتے علی شام کے دربار میں. واہ جابا کہہ رہی تھی سیدہ کی لاڈلی شام वो आबिद बीमार था, वो आबिद बीमार था, और चलने से जो लाचार था, चलने से जो लाचार था, और शाम का बाजार था, और शाम बाजार था, और मुस्तफ़ा की बेटियां मौला या हुसैन मौला हकीमा और मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله وأن عليًا ولي الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله صلوات